On a quiet morning in July 2016, two men stepped into the lobby of a bank in Taipei. Their faces were hidden behind medical masks and fisherman hats. One stopped near the entrance, the other walked calmly toward an ATM. He didn't insert a card, he didn't touch the keypad, he just stood there, waiting. And then something bizarre happened. The ATM began spitting out cash, note after note, like a broken money fountain. All the man had to do was scoop it into his bag, but the moment a stranger approached, the duo vanished. The stranger stared in confusion at piles of banknotes lying on the floor, unaware that he had just stepped into the middle of a global cyber heist. Those two men weren't alone. 20 other operatives were doing the exact same thing across Taipei. This strange event was only a tiny piece of something far larger. An orchestrated, 2-year cyber operation that quietly ripped through more than 100 banks in over 30 countries. The total stolen amount? Nearly $1 billion. One of the biggest digital robberies in human history. And behind all of it was a shadowy hacker syndicate known as Carbanic, led by a mastermind so elusive that investigators didn't even know his real name. But on that one night in Taipei, he made a mistake, a small one, a human one, and that mistake would begin the unraveling of the entire operation. The story begins years earlier, inside a bank in Ukraine. Meet Maxim, smart, respected, diligent, but with a habit that would change everything. He almost never installed his Windows updates. One ordinary morning, while sipping coffee and daydreaming about the receptionist he secretly liked, he received a seemingly harmless email from his coworker Sergey. Attached was a Word document with a serious-sounding title about compliance laws. Important enough, Maxim clicked it, read it, closed it, and went back to work. Months passed. Then, during a routine meeting, his boss walked in looking pale. ATMs were ejecting cash randomly at different branches. It made no sense until the possibility of a cyber attack was raised. Employees were warned to stay alert and avoid suspicious emails. That warning came too late. While Maxim carried on with his normal tasks, investigators from Kaspersky Lab were being called in. Their job? Figure out why ATMs across the region were suddenly turning into cash fountains. But when Kaspersky's team checked the ATM systems, they found nothing. No malware, no suspicious logs, not a single clue. Then, in the middle of one night, an urgent call from a Russian bank changed everything. Their domain controller, the heart of their entire network, was acting on its own. It was sending data to China. Someone had complete control. Kaspersky specialists rushed in, scanning every machine, digging through every process, and finally found something chilling, a remote access tool, one that allowed a hacker to watch everything happening on the screen. They tested a theory. One expert opened a blank Word document and typed a message. "Hello?" Minutes later, the cursor moved, and someone replied, "You will not catch us." The investigator typed back, "We will catch you." "No," the hacker wrote, "you will never catch us." This was the first direct contact between cybercriminal and investigator. The malware they uncovered was unlike anything they had seen. A modified version of a banking Trojan, so advanced that the team named the new variant Carbanic. Once Kaspersky understood how Carbanic worked, they realized Maxim had been the perfect victim. The email he opened months ago wasn't from Sergey. It only looked like it. The Word file exploited an old Microsoft vulnerability to install malware silently. Then, the hacker used Maxim's computer to slow down his system intentionally. Frustrated, Maxim called IT for help. And that was the moment Carbanic struck. By the time the IT technician typed his admin password, a keylogger recorded everything. Within seconds, the hackers owned the entire bank network. They watched silently for months, learning how transactions worked, studying how employees moved money, observing how ATMs were controlled, and once they fully understood the system, they attacked. Carbanic used 3 powerful methods. Method 1. They altered internal account balances, stole the excess money, and restored the total so nothing looked suspicious. Method 2. They commanded ATMs to spit out cash at specific times, where money mules, criminals hired by the mob, waited to collect it. Method 3. They opened accounts under fake identities, assigned tiny balances like $3.33, then hacked the database to change those amounts to $1 million. Now every mule suddenly had $1 million they could withdraw instantly. Banks around the world were losing millions, yet barely able to trace how it was happening. Kaspersky teamed up with Europol, the FBI, and law enforcement agencies across continents. Servers were seized, traces were found, tools were identified, but Carbanic remained operational, hidden, adaptive, untouchable, until Taipei. After the ATM chaos, Taiwanese police launched the biggest manhunt in the country's history. 500 officers reviewed CCTV footage, tracked movements, and traced hotel rooms. They arrested 3 mules, recovered 90% of the stolen cash, and found something far more valuable: emails and images linked directly to the Carbonek mastermind. This discovery sent investigators across the world into overdrive. 2 years later, in Spain, they finally found him. A Ukrainian man named Denis, living quietly in a luxury home in Alicante. He rarely went outside. He coded all day. He spent money in Bitcoin to hide his footprint. At the time, he owned 15,000 Bitcoins, worth over $160 million back then, worth more than $1 billion today. His mistake: not Bitcoin, not coding, not hacking, but buying real-world luxury with real money. Cars, homes, jewelry, all traceable. Police raided his home while his laptop was still open and unlocked. They seized evidence, cars, jewelry, and the Bitcoin wallets. But even after his arrest, most of the stolen $1 billion has never been recovered. Experts believe Carbonek was not a one-man show. Behind Denis stood a skilled team, possibly 10 to 30 people, some of whom may still be active today, working under new names, using new tools, launching new attacks. And Maxime, his bank lost millions because of a single outdated system, a vulnerability that Microsoft had actually patched 3 years earlier, but he never installed his updates. The entire global operation, $1 billion stolen, started with one employee clicking one email, a reminder. Sometimes the smallest mistake can become the biggest disaster.